Greg Berhalter has announced a 27-man roster, his final World Cup qualifying roster, the last meaningful roster until the U.S. qualifies for the World Cup. We're not going to argue about what happens over the summer or in the build-up of the World Cup with the rosters. They'll all be the horses for courses, essentially. But we will get to have this discussion like we did here, as we always do, where we get sanctimonious and get after each other because of who made it, who didn't make it. All things considered, pretty standard fare. But there were a lot of talking points, a lot of juicy storylines to take out of what's happening here that makes this as interesting a roster drop as any we have seen. A lot of moving parts, and we will break them all down here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast, where all podcasts are available. Still have the one with Derek Ritchie and the Straight Red Card. You can go through the library. I will be dropping a podcast tomorrow where I will be joined by Kellen Acosta, tomorrow being Friday, who is on this U.S. men's national team roster. We'll talk about Cuba. We'll talk about playing for a World Cup. You'll really enjoy it. So that is coming on the Soccer OG podcast. And yes, check out, like, and subscribe. Not only my glorious 50th anniversary Judas Priest t-shirt, this of British Steel, one of the great albums, but also like and subscribe to the channel. And we have a lot of great videos coming your way. So let's break it down, quickly show you the roster itself. He went big as we expected, 27 players, 9 defenders, 6 midfielders, 9 forwards. Let's talk about the guys who did make it defensively. The goalkeeper, Zach Steffen, makes it in, just sneaking in under the tape. Ethan Horvath and Sean Johnson. Defensively, Walker Zimmerman, Eric Palmer-Brown, Miles Robinson, James Sands, Aaron Long. You'll notice no Chris Richards there. We'll talk about that. The attackers, guys like Ricardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Pefok, no Josh Sargent. And then a lot of the regular guys. Some guys are carrying yellow cards, and we'll talk about that as well. But I'm okay. Who didn't make it that we should be talking about it? Well, at the top of that list is John Brooks. Because of what he said to Derek Ray, and again, remind everyone what a great resource Derek is, because he has access to these American players in Germany, and that community grows every week. More and more Americans playing in Germany. It's been the kindest league by far for the development of American players, and I think we're very grateful because of that. But some bombshells here from John Brooks saying, I accepted my responsibility for my play and why I didn't get called up, saying he was a bit surprised certainly here. I will be fighting for my American identity is at stake, what he said. And I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds really important. Your identity is very important. He's not quitting on making this World Cup roster. I wouldn't rule it out, but it looks like an uphill battle. Should he have been on this roster? Sure. Am I going to lose sleep that he's not on it? Absolutely not. Defensively, the U.S. are strong. And you have to give Greg Berhalter credit for that. They haven't given up goals. I feel very safe with the group that's there. In the last window, it was Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, and Chris Richards. Chris Richards still hasn't recovered. So you have to find a third player to come in with those 3 guys, and I think it'll be that same battery mentality. 3 center backs to play these 3 games, and you don't go beyond that. So who's it going to be? Is it going to be James Sands, who's probably there to cover some positions in an emergency case? Would it be Eric Palmer-Brown, doing very well, playing for Troyes in Ligue 1, and earned a spot here? Looks like he's moved ahead of Mark McKenzie, which he certainly should be. Where does he stand with John Brooks? I don't know. I do believe it's going to be Aaron Long. Aaron Long probably doesn't start Azteca. It's going to be Zimmerman and Miles Robinson, but Long will get in there in the nick of time. And this is, you got to take the good with the bad. The bad news is injuries. The good news is some guys returning from injuries, Aaron Long, Gio Reyna, to name a couple. But Aaron Long plays the kind of match that Berhalter wants from his center backs. Really good with his feet, very athletic, fast, you name it. Even though he tore his Achilles back in May, he's back. He looks pretty good with the Red Bulls. So I think that's going to be the group there. But let's talk about the injuries, because Chris Richards is out. Matt Turner is still out. Weston McKennie's the big name that's not out. And the latest, and we had to see it there because a few hours prior to the announcement of the roster on SportsCenter on ESPN, which I thought was a great idea. ESPN still the best when it comes to covering the national team. I think the development of what they're doing with Football Americas and incorporating that into their broadcasts is another great development. But getting on SportsCenter, I thought Elle Duncan did a great job, got Greg Berhalter to laugh a couple times, asked him some important questions. It was a good rollout. It's better than waiting online, clicking refresh every 2 seconds. Something we don't have to do for a while, it would appear, because we have this roster. But a couple hours earlier, Sergiño Dest, on a tackle that could have saved a goal for Barcelona, he went full out, and they're playing in the Europa League round of 16. They got through to the quarterfinals, and if Galatasaray scores on that goal, and they certainly could have, it could have been a different story. So give credit to Sergiño Dest. Unfortunately, as Greg Berhalter said on SportsCenter, it doesn't look good. I'm recording this Thursday night, so we might have a replacement for Dest by then. I could almost assure it, even if it's not as bad, the injury, as we would think. It didn't look good just because Barcelona replaced him like this. It was very quick. Now, on SportsCenter, Berhalter mentioned 4 players that could come in. And I thought it was interesting the order he announced them. It was George Bello, who he waxed poetic about playing at Arminia Bielefeld, Joe Scally, also playing in Germany, Shaq Moore in Spain, and Sam Vines in Belgium. To me, it's Bello. Because Sergiño Dest, you lose so much because of his dynamic play, the fact he can play as a right back and a left back, and I mean, he can just bomb forward as well. He can almost play as a midfielder. But because he can play right back and left back, now you're down a left back, you need one. George Bello seems to be the guy for an emergency purpose, much like James Sands. Now you can see the crux of creating a roster. I know people want Joe Scally. It's not Scally's time. At least he was mentioned. He might make this roster, but it makes sense to get the left back in, so I would imagine it is going to be Bello. And he mentioned him first. It's like, you got to look at the clues. You got to look at the clues. So Reggie Cannon probably comes in at right back. We're talking about the Azteca game. He's no Dest, but he's solid. Better defensively than going forward. Anthony Robinson's obviously going to lock it down on the left back. And I'm going to give you my starting 11 for Azteca here in a moment. So, with some injury concerns, and that's 2 starters, you could call Chris Richards a starter, you still come out with a pretty good group. Zach Steffen in goal, gets back in the nick of time. He's going to start, as well as Ethan Horvath is playing. It'd be odd to just bring him into the Azteca game. But he's good cover. And if Steffen's not ready, you don't hesitate to make the switch, just like they did in the Nations League back in 2022. So we now move to the midfield, and now they got to find where they play for Weston McKennie. This is one of the big moments here for this team, and we talked about it in the last video. The group was 6 players. Gianluca Busio getting in there, and Sebastian Lletget did not. So this appears to be the end of the road for Sebastian Lletget. I know a lot of you will pump your fist at that. And he's not the best player to have right now, but I want to take a moment and salute him because he filled the gap for a long time. And remember, these guys want to play in a World Cup, and that's got to be hard to be given the realization that you're not going to make it, and it appears he's not. Christian Roldan snuck in there, but he's been playing lights out for the Sounders, but it wasn't good enough for Lletget. That's fine. There are better options, but we appreciate you, Sebastian, for what you did. I can speak for everybody. I can speak for everyone. And we'll see. Maybe things change a little bit. But Busio gets in there even though he hasn't been playing a lot. He gets ragdolled a bit there in the Serie A. It'll be interesting to see what role he plays. Adams, Musa, Luca Della Torre, Kellen Acosta. That is the core group. Another issue we got to look for, and it certainly plays here into the midfield, is guys that are carrying yellow cards. So there are a few. There are a few guys that you've got to keep an eye on with regards to that. And Tyler Adams is one of them. So if he gets a yellow at the Azteca, he misses Panama. I don't know how you don't start Adams, and I spoke to Derek Ritchie about that, and I go, should we put Acosta at the 6? And I just don't know if you can, because Tyler Adams is so rock solid there, even though he hasn't played a lot. Steffen, Weah, Yedlin are the other guys on caution watch. Something to remember. I just don't think it costs Adams here. Acosta is going to get in the 11 because of his history against Mexico. He's done very well. I think that stadium will treat him well as also. And set pieces, which I think Pulisic might want to be the option number one, but Acosta has just been better in that. So I guess he plays as 1-8, and then Musa maybe more as a 10, a little further up. Luca De La Torre certainly is going to be in heavy consideration. I think he comes in if, in fact, Adams moves out and you protect him with the yellow card. And, of course, the big story here is what's more important for the U.S.? Is it the Mexico game? Is it the Panama game in Orlando? They're 4 points ahead of Panama. You don't want to lose the Mexico game and wake up Friday morning next week and go, oh, my God, we're 1 point ahead of them. You don't want that. But you got to approach this Mexico game as an opportunity. I spoke to Sebastian Salazar of Football Americas on a podcast that will be coming out soon as well, so look out for that. And we're talking about the Azteca, and he felt it doesn't have the mystique it once had. We've seen that in this World Cup cycle. The last 2 times in qualifiers, the U.S. went up there, they got a point. So it's certainly possible, but you got to pick the right 11, which makes me think it's going to be Adams, and Musa is going to push it, and maybe De La Torre comes in there afterwards. I just don't know how you leave Acosta out because of, the sundries, those few things that he could do that others cannot. Now we move up to the other dilemma. First of all, the good news. Let's talk Gio Reyna. And I thought he may not make it just because Dortmund, and I know they had this conversation with Berhalter, said, he's just come back from injury. Let him stay here and train, and he'll be ready for the World Cup. He's not quite ready. I'm glad that he's here anyway. But you still have to proceed so cautiously with Gio Reyna and his health. And this is an odd situation for a player because you're going to be a lot of air travel. By the way, they're all going to come together over the weekend in Houston to start their camp. But then Mexico, travel to Orlando, travel to San Jose, Costa Rica. That's a lot. That's a lot. This is a lot on these shoulders. 3 guys, 3 games in 7 days. So it's not an ideal situation for Gio Reyna to be in, but he's here. And I just don't know where we're going to see him. Perhaps in Panama. He can play in the midfield. He can play in the front 3. So it's good news that he's here. And he will play something if, in fact, he's part of that final 23. Christian Pulisic is playing lights out. We saw that in the game against Lille. Another incredible Champions League goal. He's going to get here healthy. He is going to be the guy, number 1, the king of New York City. I don't know what said that. So Christian Pulisic on the left. Who's on the right? I think Tim Weah, even though he hasn't been informed, but he did get in the Champions League game against Pulisic this past week. I think he hasn't started since February the 2nd, so that's a long time not to start a game for Lille. Then the guy in the middle. Josh Sargent was a bigger surprise not making this team to me than John Brooks. I think Sargent played enough. Greg Berhalter addressed it with the media, saying he hasn't played number 9, but he's a guy we will lean into at some point, but he hasn't played number 9. I thought that was something he could still overcome because of everything he can do, which means, will it be Ricardo Pepi? Will it be Jesus Ferreira? Or will it be the hot hand Jordan Pefok, who has been playing so well, it was impossible not to bring him in. I still had my doubts that he was going to get called in, but he's been playing so well. Leads the Swiss League overall 17 goals, 10 goals in his last 9 games, 5 Champions League goals. Unbelievable. I mean, you can put his goal-scoring prowess amongst the top guys in the top European leagues. Granted, the Swiss League isn't La Liga or the Premier League, but when you think of Karim Benzema or Harry Kane, I mean, this is comparable numbers. So you have to bring him in. And with no Josh Sargent, because Pepe is low on confidence and he didn't start the first 2 games, I don't know if Jesus Ferreira, I think Jesus Ferreira has a real shot here, but I think you give it to the hot hand. So Pulisic, Weah, and Pefok. Here's the starting 11. Let's flash it really quickly. I'll put it here, right? I'm going to remember. Yeah, it's here. So there you go. Stefan, Anthony, Jedi Robinson, Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, Reggie Cannon, Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, Kellen Acosta, Christian Pulisic, Jordan Pefok, Tim Weah. And don't forget Brendan Aronson, and he'll feature in here. He will figure into this. Good options in many places. So we had 3 big concerns, 4 big concerns. Goalkeeper, Steffen's back, good. What do you do? Third center back, Aaron Long. Now you have a new 5th issue with Serginho Dest. We'll find out what the solution is to that. Who's going to come in at number 9? Looks like it's going to be Jordan Pefok. Who fills in for Weston McKennie? I say it's Kellen Acosta, but it could be Luca de la Torre as well. As you can see, the one thing the U.S. has, and look, Mexico released their squad, and it was everyone you expected. Hector Herrera, Chucky, Tecatito, Raul Jimenez, Hector Moreno, Efrain Alvarez. They're not dealing with injuries. Diego Lainez. They're not dealing with injuries like the U.S., but no one's as deep as the U.S., and they're showing they're able to cover. Greg Berhalter said this on SportsCenter. It's all about the next man up. This is the situation it is. You wish these injuries didn't occur at this critical juncture, but they did. And everything in preparation leading to this was to make sure you had cover. And Greg Berhalter's done a pretty good job with that, because when you think about the options, they've all gotten a little bit of time, with the exception, well, Aaron Long hasn't played a lot, with the exception of who plays at number 9, because Jordan Pefok has been out of commission, but it's a hot hand. Otherwise, you play Pepe, who you played all the time. And even though he hasn't scored a goal, you know he'll give you a very honest effort. We'll keep it coming, man. I don't know what else to talk about. I was surprised by it, but I'm good. I think under the circumstances, I can live with this. I think you can live with this. I think everyone has something that made them happy and something that was disappointed. Don't sweat Joe Scally. Don't sweat John Brooks. Don't sweat Josh Sargent. It could have a happy ending. Remember, Scally's a teenager. And let's just do the important thing. It doesn't matter who got called in. It doesn't matter who plays where. All that matters is you get the results. Get the results, qualify for the World Cup, so we can talk about who we're going to play in Qatar come April the 1st. The Soccer OG, like and subscribe. Thanks for the support. We'll be back. Look at that thing. It's glorious. We'll be back.